Let's talk about her abilities first. First of all, she's a tank. So she will be in the tank role. Her primary weapon is called the Fusion Driver. Think of it as a projectile-based machine gun. She moves a little bit more slowly when she's shooting it, but it has a good range to it. Probably more range than almost any of our tanks have on their weapons. Maybe Zarya's alternate fire goes, equally far, but she's got a good range on it, good rate of fire, really high sustain weapon with a large clip size. So that's the Fusion Driver. The alternate fire ability on the Fusion Driver is of extreme utility. So it sends out basically a pulse. Think of Zarya's Graviton charge, which is Zarya's ultimate, but it sends out a single pulse out from her. And then you can click your alternate fire again, and it will bring any affected targets within its radius for a very short period of time. So it's like a little mini Graviton surge that she can do more often. And mostly she's using it for positioning or repositioning her targets. It also, briefly puts them in place. So if you have a teammate who's a Widowmaker or a Hanzo or even Orisa with her great range on her gun, can shoot towards that, and it really helps you line up some critical shots. That can happen. She also has a tank ability called Fortify. And what Fortify does is it not only makes Orisa a little bit tougher, but it prevents Orisa from sustaining any sort of crowd control ability that might be used against her. So like the most obvious examples are maybe Pharah's Concussive Blast, which normally knocks people around, moves them out of position. If Orisa has Fortify on and she's going over that bridge in the Gardens of Lijiang Tower, you can't knock her off at that point. She's in place. Plus, she doesn't take as much damage as well. So Fortify is a very useful, very straightforward tank ability. Now, one of Orisa's most defining abilities is her Protective Barrier. The Protective Barrier is, think along the lines of Reinhardt's Barrier Shield or Winston's Barrier Bubble that he throws out. The Protective Barrier has quite a range to it. It's roughly the size and shape of about half of Winston's bubble, and it goes out anywhere where she targets it. So it could be in front of her, could be slightly off to the side. She could use it in close on herself, or she could use it, further in front of her to shield an ally. And it creates a barrier that has the normal amount of damage it can take, like other barriers in the game. You can destroy it. Things that go through barriers, like Symmetra's alternate fire, will go through this. So it's got a lot of utility to it, and a lot of use and a lot of protectiveness. And lastly, there's her ultimate ability, which is her supercharger. So she wears this drum-like item on her back. When her ultimate's up, she can take it off her back, throw it down on the ground, and it's effectively damage boosting anybody who's in line of sight of the supercharger. Now, the thing about the supercharger is that the enemy team can kill the supercharger. So you really need to make sure to protect your supercharger either with your Protective Barrier, or maybe you want to put the supercharger, just off to the side, out of line of sight of your enemies, but in line of sight of your teammates. So there's some gameplay there to figuring out where the supercharger is, because if the enemy team kills it right away, then your team loses all of that benefit.